Sarah Chen pressed her face against the cold metal wall of the mining station. Through the small window, she watched the alien guards patrol the compound. Their tall, lizard-like bodies moved with cruel purpose. The Vorthak always looked angry, but today something was different. They carried bigger weapons and spoke in harsh whispers. The mining colony of New Petra had been under alien control for 3 years now. 50,000 humans worked the deep mines, pulling rare metals from the planet's core. The aliens called it tribute. Sarah called it slavery. She walked back to her desk and picked up the datapad. The message was clear and terrible. In 3 days, all humans on New Petra would be killed. The aliens needed the space for something they called a breeding facility. Sarah read the words again, hoping she was wrong. She was not. The door to her office opened without a knock. Overlord Thexhai entered, his yellow eyes glowing in the dim light. He was bigger than most Vorthak, with scars covering his green scales. His translator device made his voice sound like grinding metal. "Administrator Chen," he said, "you have read the evacuation order." "Evacuation?" Sarah stood up. "Your message says termination. That means death." Thexhai's mouth opened, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Human words are funny. Yes, you will all die. But first, you will dig until the last moment. Every gram of metal must be extracted." Sarah felt ice in her stomach. The children, the families, they have done nothing wrong. "Wrong is a human concept," the alien said. "You exist to serve. When service ends, existence ends. This is natural law." The Overlord left without another word. Sarah sat down hard in her chair. Her hands shook as she looked at the evacuation order again. 3 days. She needed to think. That night, Sarah walked through the colony's main street. Families sat outside their small homes talking quietly. Children played simple games with rocks and sticks. Nobody knew about the order yet. Sarah had not told anyone. She stopped at the old communication building. It had been sealed since the aliens arrived. Inside was equipment the colonists had brought from Earth decades ago. Most of it was broken or outdated. But Sarah remembered something from her military training, something the aliens might not know about. She broke the seal on the door and went inside. Dust covered everything. Old computers sat silent and dark. Sarah moved to the back room and found what she was looking for. The emergency beacon was small and black, built into the wall. Red letters said, "Earth Colonial Defense Network, emergency use only." Sarah had never used one before. Few people had. The beacons were old technology, installed on every human colony in the early days. They were supposed to call for help if something terrible happened. But space was vast and help was often too far away. She powered up the beacon with her administrator codes. The screen flickered to life. The message template was simple. Emergency beacon, activated colony, New Petra, Kepler 442c status, select from list. Message type below. Sarah selected under attack from the list. In the message box she typed, SOS, human colony under threat. 50,000 civilians face execution in 72 hours. Vorthak hegemony forces. Send help. Coordinates attached. Administrator Sarah Chen, New Petra colony. She hit send. The beacon hummed, for a moment, then went quiet. A small light showed the message was transmitted through quantum space. Sarah had no idea if anyone would receive it. Earth was far away. The other human colonies were scattered across the galaxy. The next morning brought bad news. The aliens had moved up their schedule, 2 days instead of 3. Sarah called a meeting of the colony's leaders in the old school building. "We need to fight," said Tom Martinez, the head of security. He was a big man with gray hair and angry. "It would better to die fighting than to die on our knees." "With what weapons?" asked Dr. Lisa Park, the chief medical officer. "They took all our guns years ago. They have energy weapons and armor. We have mining tools." Sarah looked around the room. 12 people, all looking at her for answers she did not have. "The mining tools might be enough," she said slowly. "Not to win, but to make them pay for what they take." Over the next day, they planned in secret, The miners knew their tunnels better than the aliens did. They could hide weapons and supplies underground. The processing plant had chemicals that could be turned into bombs. It was not much, but it was something. Sarah spent her time in the communication building, sending the same message over and over. Each time she changed the countdown. 48 hours. Then 24 hours. Then 12 hours. She did not know if the messages were going anywhere, but she kept sending them. On the final night, she could not sleep. She walked to the edge of the colony and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there were other humans, Earth, Mars, the outer colonies, but space was too big and time was too short. The next morning, Overlord HFY arrived with more soldiers. The aliens set up energy weapons around the main square. They forced all the colonists to gather there. Men, women, children, all standing in the cold morning air. HFY spoke through his translator. Humans of New Petra, your service is complete. You will be processed efficiently. Do not resist. Sarah stepped forward. Wait. Give us one more day. We can extract more metal. The deep mines still have rich veins. The alien's yellow eyes focused on her. Administrator Chen, always trying to bargain. There is no bargain. Time is complete. He raised his weapon. The other soldiers did the same. 50,000 people stood in silence, waiting to die. Then Tom Martinez shouted from the crowd, "Sarah, the sky!" Everyone looked up. At first, Sarah saw nothing but blue sky and white clouds. Then she saw it, a dark spot growing larger. Then another, then dozens. The aliens saw it too. HFY spoke rapidly into his communication device. His voice was angry, then confused, then something Sarah had never heard from a Vorthak before. Fear. The dark spots became ships, human ships dropping through the atmosphere like falling stars. They were bigger than anything Sarah had ever seen. The lead ship was massive, its hull dark gray with human symbols painted in white. The ships landed in the fields around the colony. Soldiers in human armor poured out, moving with military precision. Their weapons were sleek and deadly looking. Their armor was black with silver trim. A man in an officer's uniform walked toward the square. He was tall and confident, with steel-gray hair and calm eyes. Behind him came more soldiers, their weapons aimed at the aliens. "I am Admiral Marcus Kane of the Human Colonial Defense Network," he said in a voice that carried across the square. "We received your SOS, Administrator Chen." Overlord HFY pointed his weapon at the Admiral. "Human, you have no authority here. This system belongs to the hegemony. Leave or be destroyed." Admiral Kane looked at the alien for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and cold. "Overlord HFY of the Vorthak Third Fleet, you are charged with crimes against humanity. Surrender now or face the consequences." The alien laughed, a harsh sound like breaking glass. "One ship against the hegemony? You are either brave or stupid, human." Admiral Kane smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Sir, you should look up." Sarah looked at the sky again. The blue was gone, replaced by the dark shapes of hundreds of human ships. They filled the sky from horizon to horizon, their weapons aimed down at the planet. "We received your SOS," the Admiral said again, "and we brought friends." Admiral Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the battleship Indomitable and watched the star charts update. Each red dot represented a hegemony world. Each blue dot was a human fleet moving into position. There were a lot of blue dots. "Sir," said Commander Rivera from the communications station, "Fleet Group 7 reports they are in position at the Nixari homeworld. Fleet Group 12 is approaching the Krone ancient shipyards." Kane nodded. The plan was simple. Hit them everywhere. At once. The hegemony had ruled this part of space for 10,000 years. They thought they were safe. They were wrong. "Any response to our surrender demands?" Kane asked. "No, sir. The Hegemony Council called our message human noise and said they would deal with us after they finished their business on New Petra." Kane almost smiled. Almost. "Their business is finished. Send the order to all fleet groups. Operation Guardian." begins in 6 hours. 3 days earlier, when Sarah Chen's SOS had reached Earth, it took the Human Defense Council exactly 12 minutes to make their decision. The hegemony had gone too far. It was time to show them what humanity could do. When it was angry, the defense fleet moved faster than anyone thought possible. Ships from every human world joined the response. Earth contributed its newest dreadnoughts. Mars sent its fast attack squadrons. The outer colonies provided support vessels and supplies. Even the independent frontier worlds, who usually avoided Earth politics, sent their best ships and crews. But the humans were not the only ones moving. In the hegemony capital, the 4 ruling species held an emergency meeting. The Vorthak military commander, General Skrax, paced around the circular chamber. His scales were darker than usual, a sign of stress. The humans have mobilized significant forces, he admitted to the other 3 leaders. Our intelligence suggests at least 40 ships. The Nexari technology minister, her metallic skin gleaming under the chamber lights, made a dismissive sound. 40 ships? We have thousands. This is not a threat, it is an annoyance. The Zelthani mind readers confirm this, said the Zelthani representative, his large head nodding slowly. Human thoughts are simple. They react with emotion, not strategy. A few demonstrations of our superior firepower will send them back to their small worlds. The ancient Crone admiral said nothing. His species had ruled the galaxy the longest. They had seen many young races try to challenge the hegemony. All had failed. None of them knew that human intelligence had been watching their empire for decades. Hidden sensors tracked their fleet movements. Human agents on occupied worlds reported their activities. Earth knew exactly how strong the hegemony was. More importantly, Earth knew how weak they had become. 10,000 years of easy victories had made the aliens lazy. Their technology had not improved in centuries. Their military doctrine was outdated. They relied on fear and overwhelming numbers, not on tactical skill or innovation. On New Petra, Sarah Chen worked with the human soldiers to organize the colonists. The admiral had moved quickly to secure the planet, but Sarah knew this was just the beginning. The real war was happening in space far above their heads. How many ships do you have? She asked Kane as they walked through the colony's main street. Enough, he replied. Then, seeing her expression, he added, 847 ships in the main fleet. More are coming. Sarah stopped walking. 800? How is that possible? Earth only had a dozen ships when I left. Kane looked at her seriously. Administrator, you have been gone for 15 years. Things have changed. After the hegemony's first attacks on our colonies, we decided to build a real navy. We have been preparing for this day. Across the galaxy, the hegemony was about to learn how much things had changed. At Proxima Station, a hegemony patrol was investigating strange energy readings. The station commander, a Vorthak named Hess, was annoyed at having to waste time on what was probably a sensor malfunction. Report, he commanded as he entered the control room. Sir, we are detecting massive quantum disturbances at the edge of the system. The pattern is unlike anything in our databases. Hess looked at the display. The readings were indeed strange. Send a patrol squadron to investigate, and alert command that we may have discovered a new phenomenon. The patrol squadron consisted of 6 hegemony cruisers, each one capable of destroying a small planet. They moved toward the disturbance with confidence. The hegemony had never encountered anything they could not defeat. The quantum disturbance was actually a human fleet emerging from faster-than-light travel. 3 human destroyers appeared in normal space, their black hulls almost invisible against the stars. The hegemony patrol detected them immediately. Unknown vessels, the patrol leader transmitted. You are in hegemony space. Identify yourselves, or be destroyed. The human response was calm and professional. Hegemony vessels, this is Captain Torres of the Human Colonial Defense Network. You are ordered to surrender immediately. The alien commander laughed. 3 small ships against 6 battle cruisers? Surrender? You humans are even more stupid than we thought. The aliens opened fire first. Energy beams that could melt asteroids struck the human ships. The beams simply vanished. absorbed by shields the aliens had never seen before. The human return fire lasted exactly 3 seconds. 3 precise particle beam bursts hit 3 of the alien cruisers. The ships did not explode. They simply ceased to exist, their atoms scattered across space. The remaining 3 cruisers tried to flee. They managed to travel exactly 7 kilometers before more human ships appeared behind them. The battle was over in 12 minutes. 6 hegemony cruisers destroyed. 0 human casualties. Back on Proxima Station, Commander Hess watched the destruction on his screens. His hands shook as he sent an emergency transmission to Hegemony Command. This is Proxima Station. We are under attack by unknown forces. Patrol Squadron 7 has been completely destroyed. Repeat, completely destroyed. The enemy possesses weapons and defensive technology far beyond our capabilities. At Hegemony Command, General Scrax received the message with disbelief. Impossible. No force in the galaxy can destroy our cruisers so easily. But more reports were coming in. Human fleets were appearing throughout hegemony space. At the Nexari homeworld, 50 human ships had materialized and were demanding surrender. At the Kron ancient shipyards, human forces had surrounded the orbital facilities. How many humans are there? The Nexari minister asked, her metallic voice showing the first hint of concern. Our intelligence estimate suggested their total fleet was no more than 100 ships, General Scrax replied. We are now tracking over 800 confirmed human vessels. The Zelthani mind reader's large eyes closed in concentration. I sense something else. The humans are not afraid. They are confident, determined. They believe they will win. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Hegemony Council felt something they had almost forgotten. Doubt. On New Petra, Admiral Kane received regular updates from his fleet commanders. Each report brought good news. Human forces were in position throughout hegemony space. The aliens were scrambling to respond, but they were too slow and too scattered. Sir, Commander Rivera reported, Admiral Park requests permission to begin Phase 2. Kane looked at the tactical display one more time. Every human ship was in position. Every target was identified. The hegemony had been given their chance to surrender. They had refused. Tell all fleet commanders, Kane said quietly. Operation Guardian is authorized. Show them what happens when you threaten human children. High above New Petra, the human fleet began to move. They were no longer the desperate refugees who had fled Earth years ago. They were no longer the scattered colonists trying to build new lives on distant worlds. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. They were humanity united in righteous anger, and they were coming for the hegemony. The first battle happened at Proxima Defense Station, but it was not really a battle. It was a demonstration. Admiral Lisa Park commanded the human task force that arrived at the edge of the Proxima system. Her ships appeared in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under the distant star's light. The Hegemony Defense Force rushed to meet them with typical arrogance. Unknown human vessels, the station commander broadcast. You are trespassing in hegemony space. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. Admiral Park's response was broadcast on all frequencies, so every ship in the system could hear. This is Admiral Park of the Human Colonial Defense Network. All hegemony forces are ordered to surrender immediately. You have 60 seconds to comply. The alien commander's laughter filled the communication channels. 60 seconds? We have 200 ships and the most powerful defense station in this sector. You have 12 ships. You cannot win. 50 seconds, Admiral Park replied calmly. The hegemony ships opened fire without waiting for the countdown to finish. Energy beams and missile swarms filled space between the two fleets. The aliens expected to see human ships burn and break. Instead, they watched their weapons vanish against invisible barriers. Impossible, the station commander whispered. Admiral Park's voice remained calm. Time's up. The human ships fired once. Not a sustained barrage, not a desperate flurry of shots. One single coordinated volley. 12 streams of coherent energy reached across space at the speed of light. They struck the hegemony fleet with precision. The alien ships did not explode in dramatic fireballs. They simply stopped existing. 200 warships, each one larger than any human vessel, reduced to scattered atoms in 3 seconds. The defense station itself lasted a few moments longer, its powerful shields held against the first beam that hit them. Then, the beam cut through the shields like they were paper. The station broke apart in slow motion, its massive structure torn apart by forces the hegemony had never imagined. In the 12 minutes it took to destroy the entire Proxima defense force, the humans did not lose a single ship. They did not even take damage. News of the destruction spread across hegemony space faster than the human fleets themselves. On the Vorthak homeworld, General Scrax stared at the tactical reports in disbelief. On the Nexari research stations, scientists frantically tried to understand the human weapon technology. On the ancient Kron worlds, military leaders who had not felt fear in 1,000 years began to remember what terror felt like. "This is impossible," General Scrax repeated for the 100th time. "Our intelligence said humans were primitive. Their technology was centuries behind ours." The Nexari minister's metallic skin had lost its shine. "Our intelligence was wrong. These weapons, these shields, they use principles we do not understand. How long have they been developing this technology?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A Kron elder, ancient even by his species standards, spoke from his position at the council table. "I remember the early reports about humans. They appeared in our territory 50 Earth years ago. Small colonies, primitive ships, no threat to anyone. We dismissed them as another young species that would serve or be eliminated." "What changed?" the Zelthani mind reader asked. "We did," the old Kron replied. "Our first contact with humans was violent. We destroyed their early colonies, took their people as slaves. We taught them what the galaxy was really like. We showed them they needed to be strong to survive." General Scrax's claws scraped against the metal table. "Are you saying this is our fault?" "I am saying we created our own enemy. We forced them to become strong, and now they are stronger than us." On New Petra, Sarah Chen watched the sky with mixed feelings. The human ships above looked powerful and intimidating, but she worried about what they would do. She had lived under alien occupation for 3 years. She knew what happened when a strong military force conquered a weaker one. Admiral Kane seemed to understand her concerns. "We are not here to conquer," he told her as they walked through the colony's medical center. "We are here to liberate." "What's the difference?" Sarah asked. Kane stopped walking and looked at her seriously. "The difference is what happens after the fighting stops. Conquerors take and keep, liberators free and leave." "And which one are you?" "Ask me again when this is over." The pattern of destruction continued across hegemony space. Human fleets appeared at 17 different systems simultaneously. Each time they offered surrender. Each time the aliens refused. Each time the result was the same. At the Nexari research world of Kalos, 43 hegemony ships were destroyed in 4 minutes. At the Zelthani mind control facility on Theta Prime, 67 ships vanished in a single coordinated strike. At the Kron ancient fortress of Durthak, 92 ships met the same fate. The human strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Strike everywhere at once. Offer mercy to those who surrendered. Show no mercy to those who continued to fight. And always demonstrate that human technology was far superior to anything the hegemony possessed. But the real shock came when the hegemony tried to strike back. A massive alien fleet over 500 ships strong was assembled to attack the human forces at Proxima. The fleet included the newest hegemony dreadnoughts and their most experienced commanders. It was the largest military force the aliens had assembled in centuries. The human response was immediate. When the hegemony fleet arrived at Proxima, they found 60 human ships waiting for them. The aliens outnumbered the humans 8-1. They were confident they could finally show these upstart humans their place. The battle lasted 14 minutes. When it was over, 500 hegemony ships were debris floating in space. The 60 human ships had not even moved from their original positions. Word of the massacre reached hegemony command within hours. General Scrax looked at the tactical report 3 times before accepting it was real. 500 ships. Their best ships, their best crews, gone. We need to consider surrender, the Nexari minister said quietly. Surrender? General Scrax's voice was a roar. The hegemony does not surrender. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years, and now we face extinction, the Kron Elder replied. These humans are not like the other young species we have conquered. They are stronger than us, they are faster than us, and they are very, very angry. The Zelthani mind reader had been silent during the discussion, his large head bowed in concentration. Now he looked up and his usually calm expression showed something none of them had ever seen before. Fear. I have been reading human thoughts through our captured prisoners, he said slowly. What I have found terrifies me. The humans are not fighting for conquest. They are not fighting for resources or territory. They are fighting for justice. Justice? General Scrax made a dismissive sound. Justice is a human weakness. No, the mind reader replied. Justice is a human strength, and they will not stop until they have achieved it. They know about every world we have conquered, every species we have enslaved, every colony we have destroyed. They have been watching us for decades, building evidence of our crimes. Evidence? For what? The Nexari minister asked. For the trial that will come after the war. Back on New Petra, Admiral Kane received a priority message from Earth. The Human Colonial Defense Council had made a decision about the hegemony's request for negotiations. Kane read the message twice, then called Sarah Chen to his temporary headquarters. The Hegemony Council wants to talk, he told her. They're offering to withdraw from all human space in exchange for peace. Sarah felt a spark of hope. That's good news, isn't it? Kane's expression was grim. It would be if we were only fighting for human space. But this war isn't about territory, Administrator. It's about justice. And justice demands more than just a withdrawal. He handed her the message from Earth. Sarah read it, and her eyes widened. The Human Colonial Defense Council's response to the hegemony was simple and final. You have had 10,000 years to learn mercy. School is over. The war would continue until the hegemony's power was completely broken. There would be no negotiation. There would be no compromise. There would only be justice for the countless species the hegemony had wronged over the millennia. Admiral, Kane looked out the window at his ships in orbit. Send a message to all hegemony forces, he ordered. Any military unit that surrenders will be treated according to the laws of war. Any unit that continues to fight will be destroyed. The choice is theirs. High above New Petra, the human fleet began to move toward the next hegemony system. They carried with them the hopes of every oppressed species in the galaxy and the righteous anger of humanity unleashed. The hegemony was about to learn that some enemies could not be bargained with, could not be intimidated, and would not stop until justice was served. The Battle of New Petra began at dawn on the third day of the human offensive. Overlord Thexhai had gathered every hegemony ship in the sector for one final assault. 300 vessels surrounded the planet, their weapons aimed down at the surface where 50,000 human colonists lived. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the alien fleet take position. His own force was smaller, only 47 ships, but he was not worried. Numbers meant nothing when technology was so different. Sir, Commander Rivera reported, the alien commander is sending a transmission. Put him through. Overlord Thexhai's scarred face filled the main screen. His yellow eyes burned with hatred. Admiral Kane, you have made a mistake coming here. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick. Kane's response was calm and measured. Overlord Thexhai, you are charged with crimes against humanity and violations of the galactic laws of war. Surrender your fleet, and you will receive a fair trial. The alien's laugh was like breaking glass. Trial? The hegemony does not recognize human law. We make the laws in this galaxy. Not anymore, Kane replied. You have 60 seconds to surrender. Thexhai cut the transmission without another word. Kane turned to his weapons officer. All ships prepare for battle. Target priority is the command vessels first, then the larger ships. minimize damage to the planet's surface. The hegemony fleet attacked first, as Kane knew they would. 300 ships firing at once created a display of destruction that lit up space like a small star. Energy beams and missile swarms crossed the void between the fleets. The human shields absorbed everything. Not one shot reached the human hulls. Kane's response was swift and terrible. The human fleet fired in sequence, each ship targeting multiple alien vessels with precision. The weapons were not energy beams or missiles. They were something else entirely. Beams of pure force that cut through alien shields and armor like they were made of paper. Overlord HFY watched in horror as his fleet died around him. Ships that had conquered a dozen worlds vanished in seconds. Crews that had served the hegemony for centuries were reduced to atoms. In 10 minutes, he lost half his fleet. "All ships retreat," he commanded. "Fall back to the outer system." But there was nowhere to run. More human ships appeared behind the fleeing aliens, cutting off their escape. The trap was complete. "Sir," his communications officer reported with a shaking voice, "we are receiving surrender offers from 17 of our ships." HFY roared in fury. "Any ship that surrenders will be destroyed by our own forces. The hegemony does not yield." Admiral Kane had been listening to the alien communications. He opened a channel to the entire hegemony fleet. "All alien crews, this is Admiral Kane. Any ship that wishes to surrender should power down weapons and shields immediately. You will not be harmed. Any ship that continues to fight will be destroyed." The alien fleet began to break apart. Some ships powered down their weapons and waited. Others, loyal to HFY, continued to fight. The human response was exactly what Kane had promised. Ships that surrendered were boarded by human marines and their crews taken prisoner. Ships that fought were destroyed without mercy. HFY's own flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, was one of the last ships still fighting. The massive vessel was 3 times larger than any human ship, covered in weapons and armor. It had never been defeated in battle. Admiral Kane personally targeted the alien flagship, the Indomitable's main cannon, a weapon that drew power from the ship's fusion reactor, charged for 30 seconds before firing. The beam that emerged was brighter than the system's star. The Destroyer of Worlds' shields held for almost 2 seconds. Then they collapsed. The beam cut through the ship's hull from bow to stern, slicing it in half. The 2 pieces drifted apart, slowly, their interiors exposed to space. Overlord HFY died with his ship, still refusing to surrender. The Battle of New Petra was over in 43 minutes. 300 hegemony ships had attacked. 78 had surrendered and were captured. The rest were destroyed. The human fleet had taken no casualties, but New Petra was just one battle in a much larger war. Across hegemony space, human fleets were systematically destroying every military target they could find. The pattern was always the same: offer surrender, accept those who yielded, destroy those who fought. On the Nexari homeworld, Admiral Park's fleet faced the aliens' most advanced technology. The Nexari had energy shields that could absorb incredible amounts of damage. They had weapons that could crack planets. They had ships that moved faster than anything else in the galaxy. None of it mattered. Human technology was not just better. It was centuries ahead of anything the hegemony possessed. The Nexari fleet was destroyed in 27 minutes. Their homeworld's orbital defenses lasted another 6 minutes after that. Admiral Park sent a message to the planet's surface. "This is Admiral Park of the Human Colonial Defense Network. All military resistance has been eliminated. Any government officials who wish to discuss surrender terms should report to the following coordinates. On the ancient Kron fortress worlds, the oldest military installations in the galaxy finally met their match. The Kron had built their defenses over thousands of years. Massive space stations surrounded their worlds like metal moons. Weapon platforms filled the space between planets. It was the most heavily defended system in known space. Admiral Rodriguez arrived with 80 human ships and immediately offered surrender terms. The Kron response was swift and predictable. They opened fire with everything they had. The human counterattack was devastating. The ancient fortress stations, built to withstand any attack, cracked and broke under human fire. The weapon platforms designed to destroy entire fleets were swept away like dust. In 2 hours, the Kron's greatest stronghold was reduced to debris. The reports reached Hegemony Command faster than the alien leaders could process them. System after system fell to human forces. Fleet after fleet was destroyed or captured. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years was collapsing in a matter of days. General Scrax paced the command center like a caged animal. "How many fleets do they have?" he demanded. "Current estimates suggest over 1,000 human ships," the intelligence officer replied. "They appear to have been building this fleet for decades." 1,000 ships? The Nexari minister's metallic voice cracked. "Our total fleet is only 800 vessels." "Was 800 vessels," the Crone elder corrected grimly. "We have lost over half our ships in the past week." The Zelthani mind reader had been monitoring human thoughts through captured prisoners. What he found made him tremble. The humans are not tired. They are not running short of supplies. They are not even angry anymore. They have moved beyond anger into something else. Something cold and determined. "What do you mean?" General Scrax asked. "They are not fighting an emotional war anymore. They are conducting an execution." The Hegemony Council fell silent. For the first time in their species' history, they were facing complete defeat. Not just military defeat, but the end of their civilization as they knew it. A new report arrived from the outer territories. "Sir, the humans have begun attacking our supply bases and manufacturing worlds. They are not just destroying our military, they are dismantling our entire infrastructure." General Scrax felt something cold in his stomach. "They mean to cripple us permanently." "Yes," the mind reader confirmed. "They have studied us for decades. They know exactly how our empire functions. They are cutting it apart, piece by piece." Another report arrived, this one from the core worlds. "Sir, massive human fleets are approaching the capital system. Estimated arrival time is 6 hours." The Hegemony Council looked at each other with expressions they had never worn before. Fear, desperation, and finally, acceptance. "We need to discuss surrender," the Nexari minister said quietly. This time, General Scrax did not object. "What terms do you think they will accept?" The Kron elder spoke with the wisdom of his great age. "None that we would find acceptable. The humans are not interested in our surrender. They are interested in our destruction." High above New Petra, Admiral Kane received word that the human advance fleets had reached the Hegemony capital. The final phase of the war was about to begin. He turned to Sarah Chen, who had been working with human forces to organize relief for the liberated colonies. "It's almost over," he told her. "What happens to the aliens when it's finished?" she asked. Kane looked out at the stars where human ships were moving toward their final destination. "That depends on them. If they choose to coexist peacefully with other species, they will live. If they choose to continue their old way..." He shrugged. "The galaxy will be a safer place without them." The reckoning was at hand, and the hegemony was about to learn the price of 10,000 years of cruelty. The hegemony capital world had never been attacked in its 10,000-year history. Vorthak Prime sat at the center of their empire, protected by 3 rings of defense stations and the largest fleet in the galaxy. It was considered the most secure world in known space. Admiral Kane approached it with 800 human ships. The final battle began when the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. The hegemony defenders rushed to meet them with everything they had left. Over 1,000 ships representing all 4 alien species formed a wall of steel and energy between the humans and their capital. General Scrax himself commanded the defense fleet from his flagship, the pride of the hegemony. He sent one final transmission to the approaching human force. "Admiral Kane," his voice carried across space, "you have come far enough. This is the sacred heart of our empire. Turn back now, or face total destruction." Kane's response was broadcast on every frequency, so every being in the system could hear it. "General Scrax, this is Admiral Kane of the Human Colonial Defense Network. For 10,000 years, your empire has spread terror across the galaxy. You have enslaved innocent species. You have destroyed peaceful worlds. You have shown no mercy to those weaker than yourselves. Today, that ends." The alien general's laugh was bitter. "You face the combined might of 4 ancient civilizations. We have more ships, more experience, more firepower. You cannot win." "General," Kane replied calmly, "you have already lost. You lost the moment you decided that might made right. You lost when you chose cruelty over compassion. You lost when you sent the order to execute 50,000 innocent humans on New Petra." The human fleet began to move forward. Unlike their previous battles, this time they did not wait for the aliens to attack first. 800 ships fired at once, their weapons creating streams of pure destruction that reached across space at the speed of light. The hegemony defense collapsed in minutes. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were reduced to floating debris. Space stations that had protected the capital for millennia cracked and broke apart. The combined fleets of 4 species assembled for one final battle were swept away like leaves in a storm. General Scrax watched his flagship's shields fail under human fire. "Impossible," he whispered as his command bridge burned around him. "We are the hegemony. We are eternal." His ship exploded in silence, taking with it the last hope of alien resistance. The human fleet moved past the wreckage toward the planet itself. But instead of attacking the surface, they took positions in orbit and waited. Admiral Kane sent a message to the world below. "People of Vorthak Prime, this is Admiral Kane. Your military forces have been defeated. Your government is dissolved. You have 24 hours to form a civilian leadership council to discuss surrender terms. Any attempt to continue military resistance will result in the complete destruction of your orbital infrastructure." On the planet's surface, chaos reigned. The 4 alien species that had ruled the galaxy were now refugees on their own capital world. Some demanded continued resistance. Others begged for surrender. Most simply sat in stunned silence, unable to believe their empire had fallen so quickly. A civilian council was formed within 12 hours. It included representatives from all 4 species, as well as leaders from the many slave species that had been brought to the capital over the centuries. For the first time in 10,000 years, the voices of the oppressed were heard in the hegemony's seat of power. Admiral Kane met with the council in the planet's main government building. The room was vast and ancient, decorated with trophies from 1,000 conquered worlds. Kane looked around at the symbols of 10 millennia of oppression and felt no satisfaction in their defeat. Only sadness for all the lives that had been lost. The alien representatives sat at one end of a long table. The liberated slave species sat at the other. Kane stood at the head of the table and spoke to them all. "The hegemony is finished," he began. "Your military forces are destroyed. Your empire is dissolved. The question now is what comes next." The Vorthak representative, a younger alien named Vexus, who had replaced the dead General Scrax, spoke first. "What are your terms, human? How many of us will you execute?" Kane looked at him with surprise. "Execute? We are not here for revenge. We are here for justice. The two are not the same thing." He activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Red dots marked former hegemony worlds. Blue dots showed human fleets. Every former hegemony world is now under human protection. Your military bases have been destroyed. Your weapons factories have been dismantled. Your fleet yards have been captured or eliminated. "Then you mean to conquer us?" the Nexari representative said bitterly. "No," Kane replied. "We mean to free everyone you have oppressed, including yourselves." The room fell silent. The alien representative stared at Kane in confusion. The liberated slaves looked hopeful but uncertain. Kane continued. "The 4 hegemony species will be allowed to keep their homeworlds and their colonies. You will be free to govern yourselves as you see fit. You will be free to trade, to travel, to live in peace. But you will never again have the power to threaten other species." "And if we refuse these terms?" Vexus asked. Kane's expression hardened. "Then you will join your military leaders in the void. The choice is yours." The negotiations continued for 3 days. In the end, The terms were simple. The former hegemony species would be allowed to exist, but their military would be limited to self-defense forces. They would pay reparations to the species they had oppressed. Most importantly, they would submit to human oversight to ensure they never again became a threat to galactic peace. The liberated slave species were offered a choice. They could return to their homeworlds if those worlds still existed. They could settle on new worlds under human protection. Or they could stay and help rebuild the former hegemony territory into something better. Most chose to stay. They had nowhere else to go, and for the first time in generations, they had hope for the future. 6 months later, Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of New Petra's new orbital station. The planet below was green and peaceful. Human construction. Crews worked alongside aliens of a dozen species to build new cities and farms. Children played in parks that had been built on the sites of former prison camps. Admiral Kane joined her at the viewing window. He looked older than when she had first met him, worn down by the weight of commanding a war that had reshaped the galaxy. "Any regrets?" Sarah asked. Kane was quiet for a long moment. "Every day. War is never something to celebrate, even when it's necessary. But I sleep better, knowing that no other colony will receive the message you got 6 months ago." Sarah nodded. "What happens now? Do we go home?" "Some of us will," Kane replied. "But most of the fleet will stay. Someone needs to keep the peace. Someone needs to make sure this never happens again." As they watched, a small ship approached the station. It carried the insignia of the Galactic Peace Council, the new organization that had been formed to replace the old hegemony. Representatives from dozens of species worked together to ensure that no single power could ever again dominate the galaxy. The ship docked, and Sarah watched as aliens and humans walked together through the station's corridors. Former enemies, working side by side, former slaves standing as equals with their former masters. It was not perfect, but it was a beginning. Later that night, Sarah received a message that made her smile. It was from a small colony on the far edge of what had once been hegemony space. The message was simple. "Thank you for sending the SOS. Our children are free." Across the galaxy, the change was already visible. Pirate fleets that had terrorized trade routes suddenly found human warships blocking their path. Slavers who had operated with impunity for centuries discovered that their activities were no longer tolerated. Aggressive species that had been expanding into peaceful territories stopped their advance and reconsidered their plans. The message was clear to everyone in the galaxy. Humanity was watching. And if you threatened innocent beings, if you preyed on the weak, if you sent out an SOS asking for help, humanity would answer. On a dozen worlds, former hegemony officials looked up at the night sky and saw human ships patrolling their space. Some felt anger at their defeat. Others felt relief that the burden of empire was finally lifted from their shoulders. All of them understood that the galaxy had changed forever. The stars themselves seemed different now. Where once they had looked down on a galaxy divided between predators and prey, now they witnessed something new. Not perfect peace, but the promise of peace. Not an end to all conflict, but an end to the kind of casual cruelty that had defined the hegemony era. Admiral Kane sent his final report to Earth that night. It was brief and to the point. Mission accomplished. The hegemony is defeated. The galaxy is free. Humanity stands ready to defend that freedom for as long as necessary. The response from Earth was equally brief. "Well done. Come home when you can." But Kane knew he would not be going home soon. None of them would. The galaxy needed guardians now, and humanity had accepted that responsibility. They had answered one SOS and discovered their true calling. Sarah Chen returned to her quarters and began composing her own message. It would go out on the old emergency beacon network, but this time it would not be a call for help.